Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete what is already episode 20 of our Rimworld Anomaly Sea Ice Challenge with the transhumanist paragons of Pandroth. Time surely flies, even though we are still far away from the end of this series. In the last episode, we got back into the heart of the Anomaly DLC with a void provocation that attracted a pack of chimeras. We also fended off a small infestation, then we called in a diabolus and let the void supply us with man-hunting polar bears and a pack of fleshbeasts to take it out. And even though in the end we still had to deliver the final blow ourselves, fresh off of that victory, we then went out to attack a tribal pirate camp to fulfill our raiding duties, and today we might need to start things off with another combat in some form, as our rapidly destabilizing Nociosphere is eager to be released. Before we work on that, however, let's build a second trade beacon and then call upon the ship that arrived last episode. We are selling some pemmican and chem fuel here, acquire an advanced component and get rid of a few unwanted items for a total profit of almost 400 silver. A few hours later then, the void provocation ritual is usable again, so let's get to it. As always, it's Elpis who will take care of things. By now, I think you know how this goes. The ritual then successfully completes without Elpis falling into a coma, and now we wait, and eventually the anomaly provides a pit gate. A sinking hole in the ground from which we can hear inhuman shrieks, and in just 3 hours, whatever lurks below will have access to the surface. Now, on the bright side, we do have a bit of distance between us and the pit gate, and I'm also hoping that the Nociosphere will be able to handle most of what it spews out, because that I think is not really surprising. Of course, something called a pit gate will not just be a big but otherwise harmless hole in the ice. Narratively, this thing appearing on the sea ice is actually quite interesting. You'll see why in just a moment. For now, the gate has opened, and it will remain that way until we find a way to close it from underneath. Yes, pit gates can be climbed down into, although we might want to hold off on that, considering that first we have things climbing out, fleshbeasts, and on this difficulty probably quite a few of them. So let's release the Nociosphere for its final assault. I'm actually sad to see it go. It was a fantastic weapon in these circumstances. But taking a look at what the pit gate spits out here, I think I'll gladly sacrifice it over our colonists. One new fleshbeast entity that is part of this group here is the Bulb Freak, the largest fleshbeast we have encountered so far. Essentially a larger and more powerful version of the Tri-Spike, meaning that once they are killed, which is not actually that difficult despite their size, Bulb Freaks will release many smaller fleshbeasts from their body, potentially including tri-spikes, which themselves will then explode into even more smaller finger spikes. So even just 1 or 2 of these bulb freaks can quickly result in a large number of hostiles surrounding you, who may be weak and quickly taken out, but who might still be able to get 1 or 2 hits in before doing so. Our Nociosphere, meanwhile, does not really seem to be bothered too much by this. It actually entered the fight already injured from the previous one, but its AoE blast attack is of course the perfect weapon against a horde of weak critters. And so the only thing keeping the Nociosphere from completely decimating the flesh beasts is time. After 120 seconds its onslaught is complete and it vanishes, and this time for good, leaving us to pick up the pieces. Those pieces are thankfully almost exclusively finger spikes, the weakest type of flesh beast, so we should be fine with our usual combat setup here, 1 line of melee blockers with everyone else taking shots from behind. A flare for good measure to stun a few of the creatures, but overall we're making swift work of what the Nociosphere has left us. Nonetheless, a few minor injuries occur on Volek and Nightshade, results of the occasional tri-spike launching a finger spike behind our line of melee fighters. Overall, though, nothing that we can't cure. And after clearing out the last few stragglers from around the pit gate, we then have the unique opportunity of capturing a finger spike, Not that that's really going to help our anomaly study efforts much, as this thing only yields a meager amount of study and bioferrite, not to mention that it will soon die to hypothermia anyway, but at least Nazim will be able to examine it once before that happens. Now, while our injured pawns recover, let's build a few things. First up, a large mech recharger, unfortunately needed to recharge our Scyther Gnome and our Tunneler Mulch Butler, who might both play an important role soon in exploring the undercave beneath the pit gate. Our anomaly studies also make progress and now unlock the Bliss lobotomy procedure to be performed, potentially something to try out on our test subjects, while the next project will be bioferrite weaponry, unlocking 2 unique weapons that I want to show you, not only for completionist purposes, but also because they are both actually quite useful against certain entities, with fleshbeasts being quite high on that list. Now, we're also putting up a growth vat here, a device to rapidly age embryos and babies, although we can't actually use it yet, at least not in the way I had intended, unless we also research fertility procedures first, a small oversight on my part, so let's quickly get that out of the way and then resume unlocking bionics. One more thing we are also building at this point is a couch, specifically a dread leather one. This piece of furniture was added in the patch that came with Anomaly, and honestly, with couches, there is no reason to keep building armchairs. Not only offer couches the same seating space as 2 armchairs for fewer resources, they are also even more comfortable, so that even a good quality couch is enough to give pawns the highest possible comfort mood bonus. Making one from dread leather also has no negative effects, and stylistically I think it just fits the theme of this playthrough very nicely. Now, following that, let's fire up the gene extractor once more and plug our poor Itikin back in. Last time we extracted the Great Animals gene, and in 12 hours we'll hopefully have another one. Which brings us then to Maniac and a long overdue decision. As you can see, Maniac is a very capable melee fighter. In fact, he's the best we have. We also brought with us onto the sea ice this Persona Monosword, Renegade. It comes with a psychic hypersensitizer and the calm thoughts trait, so it would be useful for someone who can use psycasts and who has mood problems, and the latter might not apply to Maniac as much, but psycasting is something that he is capable of, and Elpis, our main psycaster for the series, I think, he will eventually most likely wield an Eltec staff, so let's reward the man who has accompanied us through 3 series with a weapon worthy of his services. And with that weapon equipped then, we assemble a strike team to explore the undercave. Essentially, this works just like a caravan, and we are taking everyone but the injured Lauren and researcher Nazim for this one. You can also bring items down with you, something to keep in mind. For now though, we will simply climb into the depths below and find out what the pit gate has to offer. Elpis and Volek, our 2 sanguophages, are then the first to make the descent, and they find themselves in a sparsely lit cave, illuminated only by the light from above and that given off by the flesh bulbs around them. The only way forward is to blast our way through the flesh, which quickly leads to a new discovery. Yes, right next to the pit gate entrance, we have now discovered a dreadmelt. This massive creature is a new kind of flesh beast entirely, appearing to have a deep psychic connection to this cave that could lead to its destruction if we kill the dreadmelt. So let us perhaps not do that until we have fully explored everything, although with the discovery of the dreadmelt, we can now also unlock a psychic ritual to summon our own pit gate. And that might potentially be very beneficial, especially out here on the sea ice. Why? Well, because just like those overgrown pigskin villages that we already investigated twice, a cave system overgrown by flesh includes flesh sacks, and those usually have some valuables inside of them. I say usually because while the first one here drops a small amount of plasteel, number 2 only has a dead body inside. And with those two discoveries and the slaughter of a few smaller flesh beasts along the way, our expedition is also already at an end for the moment. Our people are getting hungry and I simply wanted to scout out the area to see what we're dealing with. The presence of the dreadmelt this close to the pit entry might be a bit problematic. Usually the creature is located a bit further away, but it is so slow that we should hopefully be able to run right past it in the future. Now, with our pawns back on the surface, our gene extractor also completes its work and we receive the great animal's gene again. Not quite sure if this is just unlucky or if our Itakin here only has that one gene to give. In any case, once his genes have finished regrowing, we will simply try once more. As the night sets across the sea ice then, we launch our second trip into the cave, same lineup as before, only this time we are bringing some items with us. Waste packs to be precise. You might recall that I asked you about the best way to handle them a few episodes back, and well, this right here presents us with an unexpected opportunity to get rid of them without any noteworthy side effects whatsoever. So, as always, the Void provides in more than just one way, this time by allowing us to dump our toxic waste inside its belly. Sneaking past the dreadmelt a second time, our exploration then continues. You can see that several bulb freaks also inhabit the cave, and that said cave is quite the extensive network of tunnels and caverns. Now, I think that showing you the full tour through the cave in its entirety here would probably go beyond the scope of a single episode, so let's focus on the highlights, even though that might be a bit confusing regarding where our pawns actually are inside of the cave. I don't believe that that's vital information, however. Instead, our small party here finds an excellent quality recon helmet, and then the jackpot, steel. This is why I said earlier that pit gates can be tremendously valuable on the sea ice, even though they might not really make sense narratively. They are essentially your very own mountain base on a tile that otherwise has no resources. And I'm not only talking about the steel here, even though we immediately start mining it out. You have probably also noticed that the rest of the walls are made from very familiar stuff, limestone, granite, marble. If we wanted to, we could clear out this place and use it as a permanent supply of building materials. Just as our small group then finds a doomsday rocket launcher, a solar flare strikes the sea ice, so life on the surface could get a bit uncomfortable for the next day or so. Below, meanwhile, we keep exploring, find a bionic leg, and as we are about to crack open another flesh sack, we receive this quest right here. To protect an Imperial caravan, we need to draw the attention of two groups of impits. In total, we're talking about well over 100 enemies, split between the two groups, and honestly, I'm not quite sure whether or not I want to do this, especially now that we no longer have a Nociosphere to bail us out if things go south. But, as always, let me know what you think we should do here, and if you have any creative ways of approaching this fight, then drop them down below in the comments. In the meantime, we take the fight to the pit's inhabitants, something that we have so far avoided for the most part, but if we really want to use this place for its resources, then it might be prudent to clear it out first. The solar flare, meanwhile, wreaks havoc in our hydroponics farm. Luckily, we have plenty of rice already stockpiled. The next flesh sack then, holding an Architect arm, so in regards to our transhumanist efforts, the pit gate is already proving to be a massive success. It also looks like most of its valuables have been stripped already, so at this point we can focus a bit more on fighting flesh beasts, a task that our two ghouls and Maniac are very well suited for. Or rather, somewhat well suited, as Maniac goes down here. Yep, he may be unkillable, but a parka and a flak vest are not exactly heavy armor. On the bright side, the solar flare has ended, and a quick coagulate from Volek makes sure that Maniac's situation does not get worse. Still, at this point, it might be a good idea to get out of here. Unfortunately, on the way back, Nightshade also gets caught up in a small melee with several flesh beasts, so our adventuring party is not exactly looking healthy as they make it back to the steel deposit to pocket as much as possible before returning to the surface. A welcome surprise then is this one-punch KO by midnight against a bulb freak here, One hit and the creature is incapacitated, allowing us to carry it back with us. Unfortunately, thanks to the dreadmelt still patrolling near the exit, our way back up is made a little more difficult, and eventually that forces us to fight our way through a few more enemies. In the process, Nightshade's blood loss makes her go down, and that also makes her drop most of our loot. Still, eventually our troop makes it back onto the ice, some loot recovered, some left below, a bulb freak captured to study, and most importantly, with everyone still alive. Nightshade also immediately suffers a mental break, but we still manage to safely deposit the bulb freak into our containment cell. Once again, hypothermia might become an issue, but this time I actually think we want to do something about it, as a bulb freak is not only an advanced creature providing us a solid amount of study progress, but also gives us 7 units of bioferrite per day. That is more than the Nociosphere and enough to keep a bioferrite generator running all on its own, so we are building a heater here and transfer the entity over into the warmth. We don't need to make it cozy, just going to about minus 30 degrees Celsius will suffice. That's about the limit of what fleshbeasts can sustain. On the next morning then, we get ready for a third trip down below, but this time we are only sending Lauren as well as her 2 mechanoids, Gnome and Mulch Butler. The plan here is simple. Mulch Butler will immediately start mining out all of that steel, while Lauren and Gnome clear out the rest of the cave system. I don't think that we'll find any further nasty surprises, most of the map has already been revealed, but a few welcome ones indeed still show themselves, like this silver vein for example. What we can also do at this point is tell our haulers, in this case our lifter mechs, to dump all of that toxic waste down below. Even if it deteriorates, as long as we send down mechs to do the mining, they won't mind. And so, to cut a long story short then, while Mulch Butler digs for steel, Lauren and Gnome find even more of it, but at this point I think it's safe to say that the undercave is cleared, except of course for the dreadmelt. And so, Lauren grabs all of those valuables we left behind last time, Mulch Butler meanwhile up to 900 units of steel mined out, with much more still left to come. And our tunneler will stay down below as Lauren and Gnome head back up, our lifter bots also keep chucking down toxic waste, and all in all I have to say, the discovery of this pit gate definitely a blessing in disguise. Now, before we wrap things up today, let us perform that bliss lobotomy we unlocked earlier. I think our 2 captives here are the perfect targets for it. They don't really have any skills in the intellectual or skilled labor categories, and so losing out on the ability to perform work of those types should not be a problem. Our Itakin here is a good example. He can still do artwork, and that's likely what we will eventually go for, while he now has a permanent plus 20 mood bonus, hopefully reducing the likelihood of mental breaks in the future. The same procedure is then also performed on our other prisoner, same result here, plus 20 mood, and she can still do art, and so I would say the 2 of them are ready to stay with us for a little while longer. For today then, let's wrap things up with the pitgate question. What do you think we should do with it? Should we only mine it out for steel, silver and a small number of components, or should we go all in and make it a permanent mining operation to also acquire stone blocks? If so, what should the logistics of getting all of that stone up to the surface look like? And is there perhaps a way to keep the dreadmelt contained so that we can safely enter and exit the pit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and with that we can make the cut for today. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.